Hi students, in the complexes chapter, our next topic is nomenclature. A very simple topic. We have few rules, and this topic is not as elaborate, as big as the same topic which you studied in organic chemistry. UPSC nomenclature in complexes is a very simple topic. So if you spend 1 hour on this and you listen to me very carefully, I will tell you all the rules. Just observe very carefully. After that you do some practice for half an hour, gone. It is done. But before starting the nomenclature, let me discuss 3 examples from our last topic, that is isomerism. So what you do? I write the example, then you stop watching the video, just you pause it, you try, you write all the isomers of that example. Take your own time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, no problem. Then resume the video and you see my solution. And what is my answer and what is your answer? Just analyze. And you do same thing for all the 3 examples. So you see the example, don't immediately see the solution, you can pause it, you can pause the video. You write all the isomers, whatever you think. I told you in the last class, whatever you feel, you write it on the paper. Then you check whether the particular isomer is identical to any one of the isomers which you have already written. So like that you remove common isomers, repetitions. Then you finally arrive at the number of distinct isomers. Lot of practice is necessary for this. Only practice, nothing else. Now it is not difficult. Okay, so let me start with these examples. My first example is COEN twice Cl2. And here the counter ion is Cl. You observe that complex. Cobalt is in +3 oxidation state. All of you recall cobalt exhibits 2 oxidation states, +2, +3. Here it is +3 because the charge on the overall coordinations pair is +1. Counter ion Cl minus, so charge on the coordination entity is +1. And inside we have 2 chloride ions. It is ethylene diamine, which is a neutral ligand. So the charge on the cobalt must be +3. Okay, so how many isomers this particular molecular formula can exhibit? How many isomers are possible with that molecular formula? Okay. Now here the coordination number is 6. Coordination number of this complex is 6. Ethylene diamine is a bidentate ligand. So, and you have 2 such ligands. So, total 4 donor atoms, and all are nitrogens, you know that. And apart from that, we have 2 chlorines additional. So, coordination number is 6. So, now if I write down the first possibility of this, then CO. All of you recall coordination number 6 means 99% octahedral. So, this is the complex, and here 1 bidentate ligand, here 1 bidentate ligand, this is Cl and this is Cl. The angle, bond angle between 2 chlorines is 180. And definitely you can call this complex trans. Similarly, a cis complex of the same molecular and structural formula is also possible. We can keep the bond angle between 2 chlorines 90, then it will be cis. Now let me write down that also. So cobalt, octahedral complex, 1 chlorine here, another chlorine here, and 1 bidentate ligand here, 1 bidentate ligand here, and 90 degree. So it is cis. So first thing is that the given complex exhibits geometrical isomerism. So one is trans, another one is cis. Now we have to decide whether each of them is optically active or inactive. Then only we can give the final number of isomers. We have not yet seen optical isomerism. Okay. So if you come to this one, do you think it has plane of symmetry? Actually, all of you imagine above, center of the ceiling, chlorine, center of the floor, chlorine. These two face centers, to your side and this face center, one bidentate ligand, and to this side of you back, if you join them with a bidentate ligand. So this bidentate ligand is like this bidentate ligand is like this. So these four are occupied, above chlorine, below chlorine. So now if you take this plane, horizontal plane, which divides this room into two equal halves, yes, that is the plane of symmetry. So this compound has plane of symmetry. And one more thing, this compound also has center of symmetry. You go this side chlorine, you come this side chlorine. You go this side nitrogen, opposite nitrogen. Yes, it has center of symmetry also. So the trans isomer has POS. It also has COS. So there is no way it can be optically active. So trans isomer is optically inactive. Okay. Then what about cis? Okay. In the cis isomer, what you do? You take chlorine there, and you take one chlorine here. So 90 degree. Then you join this center and back center with a bidentate ligand. Then you join this center, this side center, and center of the floor with a bidentate ligand. Now you see whether you have plane of symmetry or not. If you take this plane, no, above chlorine is there, below chlorine is not there. You take this plane, vertical, then we have this side nitrogen and both of them are connected like that. But this side such a connection is not there. You see, on this side of the plane we have a connection like this. You know, this face and back face are connected. And if you have another ligand like this, then yes, yeah, mirror images. See, plane of symmetry is the imaginary plane which divides the molecule into two parts which are mirror images of each other. But we don't have any mirror image this side. Here the ligand is like this, the center of the floor and side. So there is no plane of symmetry, whichever plane you take, there is no plane of symmetry in this compound. And there is no center of symmetry either, because above chlorine and below nitrogen, second chlorine is here, so there is no center of symmetry. So the cis isomer does not have POS and does not have COS. So it is optically active. And if it is optically active, then it has two isomers, enantiomers, dextro, levo. So cis isomer exists in two different enantiomers. Trans isomer only one compound because it is optically inactive. It does not rotate plane polarized light. So total isomers of this compound is 3. One is trans. Second one is dextro-rotatory cis, and third one is levo-rotatory cis. Dextro-rotatory and levo-rotatory both are cis, but both are enantiomers of each other. One rotates polarized light in the clockwise direction, and another one rotates in the anti-clockwise direction. Okay. Now come to the second example. And even in this example also, just see the example, pause the video, you try for yourself, and write down all the possible isomers, take your own time, no problem. Then after that you match your answer with mine. So the second example is M, capital M. I am generalizing this. A2, B2, C2. There are 3 types of ligand, 2 each. Coordination number is again 6, octahedral. So now how many isomers of this complex exist? Isomers of this particular molecular formula. You exchange the groups, change the bond angles, go on doing that until you get the exact number. Then you cross check. If any repetitions are there, remove them. Then finally arrive at a distinct number, the number which contains distinct isomers. Okay. Now let me start writing it. First I am writing actually here let me tell you one thing. When you write all the isomers on your own, you can go systematically. First between A and A you keep 90, B and B 90, C and C 90. That means angle between two similar ligands 90. Then you keep angle between one particular pair of similar ligands 180, others 90. Then you keep angle between similar ligands all 180. So like that systematically you can go. So first I am writing that possibility. You see A here, B here, B here, C here and C here. Angle between A and A 90, B and B 90, C and C 90. Angle between similar, any two similar ligands is 90. There is no 180. Okay. Now next possibility is that let me keep the angle between A and A 180 and the rest 90. Then let me keep angle between B and B 180, the rest 90. Then let me keep angle between C and C 180 and the rest 90. And then let me keep angle between any two similar ligands 180, all 180s, no 90s. So in that case you will get an isomer like this. A here, B here, keep another B at 180, C here and keep C at 180. Now you see those possibilities, 5 possibilities. Now you just find if any two are same. Here angle between A and A is 90, but here 180. These two are not same. If you see these two, then angle between B and B 180, but the same two B's here the angle is 90. Again, these two are not same. So if you check like that, out of these 5 which I have written, no two are same. No two are same. And then we have to check whether each of them is optically active or not. So far we have written only geometrical isomers. We have not checked any plane of symmetry or center of symmetry. And now we are going to check it. Now you see the last one and tell me whether we have plane of symmetry in that compound. A above, A below. Okay. And the rest of the ligands are in this horizontal plane. One here, second here, third there and fourth here. A above and A below. Yes. This plane will be the POS. So, and this compound also has center of symmetry. C opposite C, B opposite B. So, it has center of symmetry also. So, this compound has POS. This compound has COS. So, it is optically inactive. So, there is only one such compound. Does not show optical isomerism. Now come here. By the same logic, this also has POS, the horizontal plane. This is the horizontal plane. But of course, this compound does not have center of symmetry. But POS is sufficient. Presence of only plane of symmetry makes the compound optically inactive. So this compound is also optically inactive. And you come here. Yes, it is inactive because this compound has POS. Of course, that compound does not have COS, so it is optically inactive. If you come here, this is also inactive because this compound has POS, again the same horizontal plane, above A, below A, and it has POS, so it is optically inactive. Okay, now come here and you see whether we have plane of symmetry in that compound. Actually here all are 90. B here and B here. C there and C there back. A here and A here. So if you cut this, if you take this particular plane, no, it is not plane of symmetry. You take this particular plane, no. You take this particular plane, no. And you take this particular, no. There is no plane of symmetry actually. You check all the planes. So no plane passing through this particular compound divides the molecule into two halves which are mirror images of each other. So this compound is optically active. This also does not have COS. No, center of symmetry is also not there. So this compound does not have POS and this compound does not have COS. So this compound is optically active. So this compound exists in two different isomers. One is dextrorotatory, another one is levorotatory. So 2 here, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. So this compound has 6 different isomers. And out of them, one is the enantiomeric pair. Out of 6, one is the enantiomeric pair. This and its mirror image, which are non-superimposable. Okay, now third example. Now it is Zn Gly twice. Okay, first before you try this complex, let me give you a small information about that complex. That complex is tetrahedral. It is not square planar. I already told you actually coordination number 4 has 2 different shapes. One is square planar, another one is tetrahedral. And at present you cannot decide actually which is square planar and which is tetrahedral. Now you take it for granted that complex is tetrahedral. Now you pause the video, then you continue. You try your isomers. Okay. Now if I write all the isomers of that, it is tetrahedral. So we can write down Zn. Actually you all know tetrahedral means it is like that. 2 bonds are in the plane and the other 2 are perpendicular. One towards you, one towards me. That is what is a tetrahedron. Okay. So these 2 are connected with a glycinate ligand NH2, CH2, C double bond O and O. And if I write down another ligand here, then it is NH2, CH2, C double bond O and oxygen here. That means one ligand is in the plane of the blackboard and another ligand is perpendicular to the blackboard. So I told you in the last class, in the tetrahedral arrangement, there is no way you can have geometrical isomerism. Square planar shape can have geometrical isomerism. Tetrahedral shape cannot have. Because in square planar we have 2 types of bond angles. Adjacent bonds are at 90 and the opposite bonds are at 180. But in tetrahedron you take any 2 bonds, they are at the same bond angle, 109.5 degree. So how can such a complex exhibit geometrical isomerism? So no geometrical isomerism. Finally we have to check whether this is optically active or not. That's it. And you see that compound carefully, whether that compound has plane of symmetry or not. See, one ligand is in this plane, another ligand is in the perpendicular plane. All of you recall, allene, cumulene, biphenyl. In biphenyl, the 2 benzene rings are like this, particularly when all the 4 ortho positions are occupied by some bulky groups. Do you remember all of you? In biphenyl, the 2 rings become like this, orthogonal to each other, when all the 4 ortho positions are occupied by some bulky groups. And cumulene is already like this because of the hybridization. You need not have any bulky groups in cumulene. Cumulene is naturally like this. So, if you can recall, cumulene is one compound in organic chemistry which exhibits optical isomerism without a chiral center. Biphenyl is another such compound which can exhibit optical isomerism without a chiral center. And structurally speaking, this compound is analogous to that cumulene, which is also called as allene or biphenyl. Okay, so here if you take this plane, no problem, you can cut this ligand into two halves, but you continue, the other ligand is like this, and if you continue that, one side oxygen, other side nitrogen. So you are not getting the halves which are mirror image of each other. Now suppose if you select this plane, this ligand can be cut into two halves, but if you proceed, the other ligand is okay. If you select this plane, so one ligand is already like this. You can cut this into two halves, but other ligand is in the plane of the blackboard. Now if you come here, above nitrogen, below oxygen, or above oxygen, below nitrogen, so no way. So this compound does not have POS, and that compound does not also have COS, center of symmetry. See, they are like this. So how can this compound have center of symmetry? If you go towards you, then nitrogen. Then if you come towards me opposite direction, nothing is there because this ligand is like this, perpendicular. So no COS. So this compound does not have POS, and this compound does not have COS, and as a result this compound is optically active. So two isomers, one is dextro, another one is levo. No geometrical isomerism. Only one compound is possible, and that exhibits optical isomerism. Okay. Now, actually, I told you that cumulene and biphenyl are the two similar examples. Let me draw them. So this is cumulene, which is also called as allene. We don't have plane of symmetry in that because the groups are perpendicular to each other. It is like this. Now, if you come to biphenyl, same, the two rings, especially when all the four ortho positions are occupied. Suppose here we have a NO2, here we have F, and here we have F, here we have NO2, and these two are benzene rings. Now the compound is optically active because the two benzene rings are perpendicular to each other. No plane of symmetry. This is not the plane of symmetry, and this is not the plane of symmetry. No COS. So that compound is also optically active. And don't you think that our given isomer is structurally analogous to those two? So in tetrahedral complexes, you may not find geometrical isomerism, but you can find optical isomerism. And in square planar, you cannot find optical isomerism, especially if the ligand is very simple, because it is square planar, and square planar compound always have a plane of symmetry, that is plane of the molecule itself, plane passing through the molecule. And if a compound has POS, that cannot be optically active. So in a square planar complex, if the ligands are simple, then that compound cannot show optical isomerism. And a tetrahedral complex similarly cannot show geometrical isomerism. And octahedral complexes can show both geometrical as well as optical isomerism. Now let us come to the IUPAC nomenclature of complexes. And I already told you, you have a set of simple rules, and if you remember all the rules, then you will be able to name a complex efficiently. Okay. Now let me discuss those rules. So before I start giving you the rules, let me ask you some names of ionic compounds, which you all know, very familiar. Suppose we have NaCl. my first compound is NaCl and my second compound is AlCl3 and third compound is Na2ZnO2 and fourth compound is KMnO4 and next K2Cr2O7. Okay, if you see these examples, what is the name of NaCl? Sodium chloride. Let me write that. Sodium chloride. And what is the name of AlCl3? Aluminium chloride. What is the name of Na2ZnO2? Sodium zincate. And the name of KMnO4, potassium permanganate. And the last one, potassium dichromate. Okay, actually if you observe these names carefully, you might not have observed this actually because these names are very familiar actually. We do not care about this. Generally we don't analyze such names, but if you analyze them, you see, the name of NaCl is sodium chloride and the name of AlCl3 is aluminum chloride. So that means the rule is that cation is named first and followed by anion. You see any example? Not only these 5 or 6 examples, you take any example of a salt. So when you name a salt, you always name the cation present in it first. You keep a small gap, then after that you write the name of the anion. Cation, gap, anion. Cation, gap, anion. You name any salt like that. And you know this is a rule. Okay. Second observation you see. Second observation. AlCl3 if you see, the name of AlCl3 is aluminum chloride, not aluminum trichloride. Suppose we have MgCl2. You don't call MgCl2 as magnesium dichloride, you call it as magnesium chloride. So this is another rule. So di, tri, tetra, penta, these numerical prefixes, the prefix which indicates the number, we don't use these numerical prefixes while naming the salt. And third observation, you know that is also a rule actually. When you name a salt, no change in the name of a cation, but we change the name of the anion. For example, NaCl. In NaCl, the cation is Na plus, which comes from the element sodium, and anion is Cl minus, which comes from the element chlorine. So Na plus is still called as sodium, but chlorine is not called as chlorine in the salt, it is called as chloride. So sodium chloride, no change in the name of the cation, so the same element name is retained, but when you name the anion, its name changes. This is the third observation. So keep these 3 observations in mind. And you all know even complex compounds are also salts basically. The only thing is that sometimes cation is the complex ion, sometimes anion is the complex ion, sometimes both cation and anion are the complex ions. That is the only difference, but basically it is a salt. So you name the cation first and you name the anion next, keep a gap in between. No change in the name of the cation, but anion name changes. Chloride, sulfate, bromide, oxide, hydroxide, but sodium, magnesium, barium, potassium, potassium dichromate. So no change in the name of the potassium. The same potassium elemental name is retained. So this is another observation. Now suppose if you see some complexes like this K4, FeCN6, CO NH3 taken 6 times Cl3. Then we have CO NH3 taken 6 times, CrCN taken 6 times. So these are the 3 examples. Now here what you do? You name the cation first. The same rule. In complexes also the same rule. Then you name the anion. But here the anion is complex ion. And how do you write the name of this particular coordination entity? There are 6 Cn minus, there is one iron ion. How do you write the name of that complex ion? That we will learn now. But basically the first rule is that cation is named first and then anion. And you see here, the cation is the complex ion. So first you name it and then anion. And when you write down the name of the anion, you don't write trichloride, you only write chloride. Because even in AlCl3 also we have written only chloride. So why should we write here trichloride? And here cation and anion both are complex ions. So first you name this particular ion, it is the cation. CO plus 3, overall charge plus 3. Cr plus 3, overall charge minus 3. So first you name the cation name, then anion name. So here the first rule is, in the complex salt, cation is named first. Followed by the anion. Keeping a gap in between. So that means the name of the complex compound is not actually one word. We keep a gap. Suppose if the complex compound is neutral, there is no counterion at all, oh, then there will be no gap. But if it is a salt, there is a cation, there is anion, then yes, we should keep a gap. Cation first, anion next. Then second point, which is obvious, which we all know, that is numerical prefixes. Like di, tri, etc. are not used for cation and anion. So the name of this compound starts with potassium, not tetrapotassium. The name of this compound ends with chloride, not trichloride. So that is what this rule means. And this rule already exists. This rule is valid for all ionic compounds, and complex compounds are also ionic compounds, 99%. So these two rules are obvious rules. So now we will study about the rules which according to which we name the coordination entity, and that is the only remaining in IUPAC nomenclature. Actually overall complex, how do we name it, we got an idea. First cation comes, then anion comes, in between gap. So these repetitive prefixes, di, tri, tetra should not be used. So potassium only, not tetrapotassium, chloride only, not trichloride. Then I will tell you the rules according to which we name the coordination entity, and with that this topic will be complete. Now let me discuss naming the coordination entity. The rules according to which we name the coordination entity. So this is the only thing remaining. Okay, now let me list all the rules. Actually, in coordination entity, there are some ligands. There is central metal ion. Ligands may be of one type, two types, three types. You know, homolytic complexes are there, homoleptic complexes are there, heteroleptic complexes are there. So, ligands and central metal ion. So, the entire compound, the entire ions, neutral compounds present in the coordination entity, which we write in the square brackets. So, in this the first rule is ligands are named first. Central metal ion later. But you all know, while writing the molecular formula of the complex, this is exactly opposite. We write the central metal ion first, followed by ligands. But while writing the name of the complex, we write all the ligands, all types of ligands. Once we have written all the ligands, then only we write central metal ion. So, central metal ion comes at the end. So, this is the first rule. Now, second. There should be no gap in the name of the coordination entity. And this is an important rule. That means we treat coordination entity as one unit. So it is just a cation, it is just an anion. You know, you don't keep any gap within sodium. When you write down sodium chloride, you keep a gap between sodium and chloride, but within sodium or within chloride, we don't keep any gap. We treat them as single bond. So same thing. So whether the coordination entity is cation or anion or neutral compound, so within the name of that coordination entity, there should be no gap. And that entire thing, names of the ligands, names of the central metal ion, everything is represented as a single word. So that is the second rule. And third rule, repetitive prefixes. Numerical prefixes for ligands. I already told you, if cation is repeated or if the anion is repeated, suppose AlCl3. So the name of AlCl3 is not aluminum trichloride. Name of K2SO4 is not dipotassium sulfate. So when you name the anion or cation, no repetitive prefix is necessary. But when you write down the name of the coordination entity, in that suppose there are 6 Cn minus. So it comes hexa, cyanido. Suppose there are 5 ammonia, then pentaamine. Suppose there are 4 Cl minus, tetrachlorido. So when you write down the name of the coordination entity and when you write down the names of the ligands particularly, these repetitive prefixes are necessary. Okay. So there are two kinds of these repetitive prefixes, two types for ligands are of two types. The first type you all know, that is di, tri, tetra, etc. This is very familiar to you. So suppose if there are 4 Cl minus tetrachloride, if there are 6 Cn minus, then hexacyanide. So this is one type of repetitive prefix. There is another type of repetitive prefix, that is bis stands for 2, tris stands for 3, tetrakis stands for 4, so on, pentakis, hexakis, like that. So why these prefixes are necessary? Actually, second category of prefixes, why they are necessary? Actually, they are necessary in two cases. And with examples, let me explain that. These are necessary when the ligand, when the name of the ligand already includes di, tri, etc. and when there is an ambiguity, and when there is an ambiguity. For example, you recall one, actually the first problem comes especially in the case of polydentate ligands, bidentate, tridentate, tetradentate. Some of the polydentate ligands already contain these repetitive prefixes. For example, ethylene diamine. So in ethylene diamine, we already have di. So when we have two such ligands, we use bis. When we have three such ligands, we use tris. And one more example of bidentate ligand which contains those prefixes, bipyridine, BPY, bipyridine. So we use, when we have two such BPY, we use bis, not di. When we have three such ligands, we use tris, not tri. So when the name of the ligand already contains these prefixes, then we use second type of prefixes. And second case where we use this particular set of prefixes, repetitive prefixes, is when there is an ambiguity. Now with an example, let me explain actually what do you mean by this ambiguity, what kind of an ambiguity it is. Okay, suppose we have in a complex NH3 twice. So we write simply diamine, and you all know in this spelling double M comes, not single M. Ammonia, AMMONIA. So diamine. So it is a normal simple ligand, and that ligand does not already contain these type of prefixes, so no problem. So no need of bis, tris, etc. So it is diamine. Now for example, we have CH3NH2 twice. Two such ligands are there. Methylamine, whose systematic nomenclature is methanamine. So suppose you want to use methylamine, then we use bis methylamine. Okay, suppose if you want to use methanamine, then you can use di. Methanamine. because there is no ambiguity in methanamine, but there is an ambiguity in methylamine. Let me show you how. Suppose we have CH3 twice NH. Now suppose this is the ligand present in the complex, CH3 twice NH. Do you think whether this dimethylamine is a ligand? Yes, because nitrogen has a lone pair. Similar to methylamine, dimethylamine is also a ligand. So its name is dimethylamine. So what we write? Okay, there is only one such ligand, for example. So we write dimethylamine. So here methylamines are 2. So if you write down here, in this case, if you write down dimethylamine, then don't you think that there is an ambiguity between these two? There is confusion. So whether the ligand is methylamine and 2 such ligands, or whether the ligand is dimethylamine and 1 such ligand. So it is an ambiguity. So suppose if you use methanamine, then there is no ambiguity. So in the case of methanamine, you can use the first set of repetitive prefixes. But when you use methylamine, better to use bis to avoid this particular ambiguity. Okay, for example, you have ethylene diamine and we have 2 such ligands. So we write down bis ethylene diamine, and we can write down ETHY, ethylene diamine, and it is single length. And you can also write down bis 1, 2 ethane diamine. You can write this also. But ethylene diamine contains di, 1, 2 ethane diamine also contains di. So in both the cases, better to use bis rather than di. So under 2 circumstances, we use the second set of repetitive prefixes. When the ligand already has the first set of repetitive prefix, or when there is an ambiguity. So to avoid that ambiguity, we can use the second set of repetitive prefixes. Okay, now this is the second rule. Now come to the third rule. Actually, when you use these prefixes, di, tri, tetra, or maybe the second set of prefixes, there should be no elision of the letters. There should be no elision, ELISION, elision of words. So do you know what is meant by elision? Sometimes in English language, when 2 different words come one after the other, what we do is we combine them, we merge them, and we eliminate some letters. For example, we write letters like this, but that is actually let us, 2 different words. We eliminated you and we combined both of them, so let's. Okay, even we write cannot like this. So we eliminated 2 letters here, N and O. It is actually can not, but we write cannot. This is what is called as elision. But while writing the names of the ligands along with the repetitive prefixes, there should be no elision of any letter. For example, we have ammonia ligands, 4 ligands, 4 such ligands in a complex. So we should write tetraamine. This is how you should write. You should not write like this as tetraamine. This is wrong. So if vowels are repeated, let them repeat. So don't eliminate one vowel. We should keep both of them. So there should be no elision of letters. Not words actually, it is letters. Okay, suppose another example, we have 5 water ligands. So the name should be like this, penta-aqua. And it should not be like this, pentaqua. This is wrong and this is correct. Okay, now come to the next rule. Actually, in the case of heteroleptic complexes, when we have more than one type of ligand, you write the names of the ligands in alphabetical order. So, naming the ligands in alphabetical order. And you should not consider any other criteria. Cation, the ligand can be anion, the ligand can be neutral, and in very rare cases ligand can be positively charged, that means cation. Whatever may be the charge on the ligand, cation or anion or neutral, we list them in alphabetical order. And one more point here is, while considering alphabetical order, the repetitive prefixes should not be included. So, for example, you are writing tetraamine. While deciding the alphabetical order of this particular ligand, we should consider A, the first letter of the original name of the ligand. You may add any prefix, any repetitive prefix, di, tri, or, bis, tris, so on. But while deciding the alphabetical order, those prefixes should not be considered. The first letter of the original name of the ligand must be considered. And similarly, if you come to this penta-aqua, A should be considered while deciding the alphabetical order of water ligand, not P. So the first letter of the original name of the ligand must be considered while deciding the alphabetical order. So this is the next rule. The first letter of the original name of the ligand. Okay. Actually, if you see the summary of these rules, actually I have told you 4 rules. Particularly in the third part, repetitive prefixes about this. Then after that, there should be no elision of letters. So this is the 4th rule, and this is the 5th rule. So naming coordination entity. So these are the 5 rules, first 5 rules. First ligand should come, then central metal ion. And I told you already, when you know that, you also know that while writing the formula, this becomes opposite, reverse. Then there should be no gap. We treat the entire coordination entity as a single unit. So that entire name should be like single word. And obviously you know there should be no gap in a word, within a word. And there are 2 types of prefixes. And second kind of prefixes are used in two cases. One, when there is an ambiguity. Second, when the ligand already contains the first set of any of the first set of prefixes. Then there should be no elision of letters. Don't remove the letters. No abbreviations, please. You should write down as it is. Then alphabetical order. Actually here, let me tell you a small example. In one of the previous questions of JEE Advanced, he has asked name of a particular complex, and in that two options are given. The only difference between those two options is in one it is single M, and in other option it is double M. The ligand is ammonia, and in one option single M is given, and in the other option double M is given. That is the only difference, and the other two options are wrong, and one of these two options is correct. Obviously the one in which double M is there, that is correct. So that means the examiner, whatever may be the exam, JEE Advanced, JEE Mains, or NEET or MCET, whatever may be the exam, they are very particular about even one single letter. So that means you may think, what is the problem? Okay, elision of letters, you eliminate it or don't eliminate it. What is the problem? Only one A extra comes, but that makes all the difference. So be particular about all the rules. Don't ignore or don't underestimate any rule. Each and every rule is important, small or big, whatever it may be. Now let us see the other rules. So the next rule, you can say the rule number 6. Naming the anionic ligands. Particularly anionic ligands. While writing the names of the neutral or cationic ligands, I told you already cationic ligands are very rare. Generally, we don't come across them. And neutral ligands and cationic ligands, no change. But when you write down the name of the anionic ligand, there are small changes. Okay. Now you all know actually anionic ligands, the names of the anionic ligands end with generally 3 types of prefixes. One prefix is I-T-E, example nitrite, sulfite, and this ITE, if any anionic ligand ends with ITE, then you should change that prefix into, let me write down here like this, changes into ITO, nitrite, nitrito, sulfite, sulfito. So E should be replaced with O. Okay, and you know some anions end with ATE, sulfate, nitrate, carbonate, phosphate, dichromate, so many examples are there. And this ATE changes into ATO. That means simply E will be replaced with O. And you know, some anions also end with IDE, oxide, hydroxide, chloride, cyanide, and this IDE is similarly changed to IDO, IDO, chlorido, cyanido, sulfido, like that. So anionic ligands names of the anionic ligands are modified. but names of the neutral ligands and the names of the cationic ligands, they are not modified. Okay, for example, if you see CO, then it is carbonyl. If you see NO, then it is nitrosyl. And if you see NO plus, then it is nitrosonium. NO plus is nitrosonium everywhere. And when I say names of the neutral and cationic ligands are not modified, I should give you some few exceptions to that. Actually, it is not a modification, but names of some of the neutral ligands are common names. Their common names are not used. For example, we already discussed about that. Suppose if you have water, then we don't use water, but we use aqua. Suppose we have ammonia, then we use amine, AMMINE. Elsewhere we call it as ammonia. In organic chemistry, even in inorganic chemistry in other chapters, we simply call it as ammonia. But here we call it as amine. So whenever ammonia acts as a ligand, we call it as amine, AMMINE. We call O2 as dioxygen. So like that, some neutral ligands are represented by these names: aqua, amine, dioxygen. And anionic ligands, all the anionic ligands, names of all the anionic ligands are modified. And simple, the last letter E, that vowel, E changed to another vowel, that is O. That's it. So IDE, IDO, ITE, ITO, and ATE, ATO. So this is while naming the ligands. Okay. Now the next rule. Actually, when I started this particular topic, UPSC nomenclature, I asked you the name of NaCl, then AlCl3, then Na2ZnO2 sodium zincate, potassium permanganate, potassium dichromate. So now let me tell you, actually we almost completed naming the ligands, except one rule that I will tell you at the end. When it comes to naming the central metal ion, we have one particular rule. Whenever complex ion, whenever the coordination entity is positive or neutral, then there is no change in the name of the central metal ion. Whatever may be its name in the elemental state, same name we use. Like NaCl, sodium chloride, AlCl3, aluminum chloride. So whenever coordination entity is cation or neutral, the same elemental name is retained. Iron, same iron. Zinc, zinc. Chromium, chromium. But when the coordination entity is an anion, then we generally add ATE to the name of the metal's elemental name. Suppose there is zinc, zincate. Suppose there is chromium, chromate. Suppose there is cobalt, cobaltate. Only when the coordination entity is a anion. Because that happens everywhere also. Sodium zincate, aluminum chloride. You don't call AlCl3 as aluminum chlorine. You call it as aluminum chloride. So obviously here also, whenever the coordination entity is an anion, so some modification must be there, like elsewhere. But when the coordination entity is a positive ion, that means a cation or neutral compound, then that is not necessary. So that is the seventh rule. When the coordination entity is an anion, the name of the central metal ion should end with ATE. But only when it is an anion. No change in the name of the CMI. No change in the name of the CMI when the coordination entity is cation or neutral. And if you come to examples, suppose we have Fe, then it becomes ferrate. When we have cobalt, it becomes cobaltate. When it is zinc, zincate. When it is silver, argentate. Like that. Chromium, chromate. But only when the coordination entity is an anion. And everywhere else you just keep, in this case you will get iron, in this case you will get cobalt, in this case you will get zinc, in this case you will get silver, simple. But when it is anion, the names change. So this is the 7th rule, while naming the central metal ion. Okay, now if you come to the 8th rule, then oxidation state of the central metal ion. Oxidation state of the central metal ion is written as Roman numeral. In parenthesis. Parenthesis means brackets. So you have written the names of all the ligands. Then you write the name of the central metal ion at the end, and after that keep a small gap, and after that in brackets you write down the oxidation state of the central metal ion. And when oxidation state of the central metal ion is positive, which is the case in majority of the cases, 99% of the cases, you need not write plus. So by default plus is understood. But when it is negative, which happens very rarely, then you can write down the sign, Roman numeral, and before the Roman numeral you can write down the sign. For example, we have Na2FeCO4. So here you see charge of the coordination entity is -2. Then it comes, the Fe becomes ferrate because the coordination entity is negative, it becomes ferrate. And here the oxidation state of iron is -2. So you write down ferrate, keep a small gap, and in brackets minus Roman numeral 2. But when it is, whenever the oxidation state is plus, you need not write anything, just write down the Roman numeral. Just write down the magnitude in Roman numerals. No need of writing the sign. Now this is regarding oxidation state of the central metal ion. And if you come to the last rule, if you remember, some ligands are ambidentate. And we have seen in isomerism also, whenever we have ambidentate ligand, that particular compound exhibits a type of structural isomerism called as linkage isomerism. And you know, in ambidentate ligands, either atom can donate. So suppose if you have Cn minus, then carbon can donate, nitrogen can donate. So then how do you distinguish the names of those two complexes? One complex is there in which carbon is donating, another complex is there in which nitrogen is donating. So what difference comes in the names of those complexes? So it is very simple. Suppose we have CN, where carbon is attached to central atom, not nitrogen. Nitrogen is free. Then it is, the name is cyanido hyphen Greek letter kappa C. We write like this. Some people also write C in brackets, that is also okay. And one way of writing this is cyanido hyphen kappa C. Now suppose nitrogen is attached, same cyanido hyphen kappa nitrogen. Suppose we have NO2 where N is attached, then you can write down nitrito hyphen kappa nitrogen. Suppose the attachment is through oxygen, then same nitrito hyphen kappa oxygen. Suppose we have SCN where the attachment is through sulfur, then it is thiocyanato. And be careful all of you, it is not cyanido, it is cyanato, and hyphen kappa sulfur. And if the attachment is through nitrogen, then it is same thiocyanato hyphen kappa nitrogen. So this is how we write down the names of the ambidentate ligands. So oxidation state, regarding oxidation state, some rule. Regarding bidentate ligands, there is one rule. Regarding name of the central metal ion, there is a rule, you have to be very particular. If it is the part of the anionic coordination entity, then its name is modified. Okay, then names of the ligands, particularly anionic ligands. Names of the anionic ligands, they get modified. And some of the names of the neutral ligands, yes, you should be careful about these type of ligands. So this is all about actually IUPAC nomenclature. Actually here let me sum it up. I already told you it is very simple, and many students think that some rules are silly rules, but I already told you there is no silly rule, there is no serious rule. You have to be serious about each and every rule. Don't underestimate any rule. Ignoring A, ignoring B, not ignoring A. I think you recall we have discussed about there is no elision of words. There should not be any elision of words, and that rule is as important as any other rule. Capital letters, small letters, keeping gap, not keeping gap. Coordination entity should be like one word. There should be no gap in that. And obviously the starting letter must be capital letter. That is also, I did not mention that rule, but whenever you start a name, then obviously its name should be capital. So this is the rules, this is the IUPAC nomenclature. Actually now let me take some examples. Let me write names of some of the complexes myself. Now let us see these examples. Let me name all these complexes by following all the rules which we have just seen. Okay, before I start naming these compounds, you see one thing. In these complexes, some are homoleptic like this, and some are heteroleptic. All of you just see the heteroleptic complexes. I told you while naming the complex, ligands are named in alphabetical order. When you write the formula of the complex, even then you follow that rule. We write the ligands in alphabetical order. For example, you see this case. Actually, the name of this ligand is chloride. It changes to chlorido. The name of this ligand is triphenylphosphine. and its first letter is T. See, triphenyl phosphine is the original name. Tri is not the prefix we added. Tri is part of the name of that ligand. So T should be considered. So C, T. So chlorido should come first. So that means alphabetical order rule we follow even when we write down the molecular formula of that compound. Not only the name, but even when we write down the molecular formula. You see here, ammonia, A, and aqua, AMAQ. So AQ comes later in the alphabetical order. And this is homoleptic complex. And you see any heteroleptic complex, ammonia, chlorido, methylamine. So ACM. And other complexes you see ammonia carbonate, AC. And you see any heteroleptic complex like this. Okay. Now come to the first compound, NiCl2 PPH3. Now here there is no counterion. The coordination entity is neutral. So here if you start with the ligands, because we directly name the coordination entity, there is no counterion. So at the beginning of the name of the coordination entity, ligands should come in alphabetical order. So its name is dichlorido. Triphenyl phosphine contains already the one of the first set of prefixes, tri. So we should use bis, not di. There should be no gap. Base. Generally, that bidentate ligands are kept in brackets. Generally, there is no strict IUPAC rule for that, but generally they are kept in brackets. So bis, triphenyl phosphine, triphenyl. Phenyl means benzene ring, you all know that. It is not phenol, it is phenyl. Triphenyl phosphine. All of you recall group 15, hydrides of group 15 elements, ammonia, phosphine, arsine, bismuthine, stibine. So PH3 is phosphine. You replace all the hydrogens with benzene rings pH, PPH3. So and two such ligands are there, so triphenyl phosphine. Then ligands names are complete, then comes the central metal ion. And what is the charge on that central metal ion? +2, because the triphenyl phosphine is neutral and overall is 0, and inside we have two negative charges, chlorides. So Ni+2, and the coordination entity is neutral. So the name of the central metal ion should be nickel, not nickelate, only nickel. So nickel hyphen in brackets 2, oxidation state of the nickel. So that is its name. And entire the name is one word. There should be no gap in between. Okay. If you come to the second one, actually second one has a charge that is -1. COSCN taken 4 times -1. So this is thiocyanate, and it is a bidentate ligand, you know. And whenever S is written first, then it indicates that it is the sulfur which is actually attached to the central metal ion. So, and here the cobalt oxidation state is +3, and here the coordination entity is anion. So cobalt becomes cobaltate. So the name of this compound is tetra thiocyanate hyphen kappa sulfur. Sulfur is attached there. Cobaltate. And the charge of the central metal ion is 3. It is +3. And we have seen already, we don't write plus. It is understood. So that is the name of the complex. Tetrathiocyanato kappa sulfur cobaltate. Okay, now come to the third one. We have two different types of ligands. One is aqua, second one is amine. So amine comes first, and here the coordination entity is the cation, counter-ion is the anion. So the name starts with the name of the coordination entity. So we write down here tri-amine, AMMINE, tri-aqua. Tri, after triamine there is no comma, there is no hyphen, all of you please remember, no gap even. So triamine, tri-aqua, and here the coordination entity is the cation. So chromium, not chromate, chromium hyphen its oxidation state +3. And you recall, all of you, chromium almost always shows +3 oxidation state in all its complexes. Then keep a gap, then chloride. And all of you don't do a mistake of writing trichloride. No. Tri, di, bis, tris, these are the prefixes we use only for the ligands, not the counter-ions, not the complex ions. Okay. So chloride. And you see the next complex carefully. Here we have actually 3 sulfate ions. So the total charge is -6. So the total charge of the coordination entity must be +6. And you see there are 2 coordination entities twice. So each +3. So that means cobalt is carrying +3 oxidation state because the ligand is neutral. Ligand is a bidentate ligand, ethylene diamine. So it is a neutral ligand. So the charge of the cobalt must be +3. Okay. And there are 2 coordination entities, but we don't write di. K2SO4, the name is potassium sulfate, not dipotassium sulfate. AlCl3, the name of AlCl3 is not aluminum trichloride, it is aluminum chloride. So neither the cation gets any prefix, repetitive prefix, nor the anion. So we write down here, this is the cation, so name starts with cation. Tris bracket 1,2 ethane diamine cobalt, not cobaltate, and oxidation state of cobalt is 3, then sulfate, not trisulfate, only sulfate. Okay, actually in this complex, in the place of 1,2 ethane diamine, we can also write down ethylene diamine. That is also okay. That means tris ethylene diamine cobalt 3 sulfate. So this ethylene diamine can be written as ethylene diamine or its IUPAC name, systematic name, 1,2 ethane diamine. Both are accepted. Okay. Now, if you come to this particular complex, that is also heteroleptic complex. The coordination entity is cation, and oxidation state of platinum, you see all of you, +2, because overall charge is +1, and here we have Cl-, both methylamine and ammonia are neutral. So the oxidation state of platinum is +2. So diamine, AMMINE, chloro, even methylamine is also one ligand. So methylamine or methanamine, and the coordination entity, charge of the coordination entity is plus. So it should not be platinate, it should be platinum. Okay, then let me continue here. Platinum. Oxidation state is platinum oxidation state +2. Gap chloride. That is the name. So diamine, chloro, methanamine, platinum, no gap, then hyphen, oxidation state 2, chloride. Okay, if you come here, you see both cation and anion are complex ions. In these two examples, both cation and anion are complex ions. But the rules are same. First cation, then anion. Okay, and here we write down this cation as diamine, double M. This is the cation, so silver, not argentate. Then hyphen charge 1, Ag plus, and we already know that silver always shows +1 oxidation state. Okay, then gap, then dicyanido, hyphen kappa carbon argentate, because it is the anion, so argentate, and in brackets oxidation state 1. Actually after this C there should be no gap. Okay, then hyphen oxidation state 1, and if you come here then it is hexaamine. There should be no elision. Keep both the A's here. Hexaamine, cobalt, not cobaltate because it is a cation, and here the charge of the cobalt is +3. Overall charge +3 here and here -3, so it is 3. Then gap, hexacyanido, hyphen kappa carbon chromate, and oxidation state of chromium is +3, so hyphen Roman numeral 3. So in these two cases both cation and anion are complex compound, that means coordination entities. Okay, if you come here then you see what is the name of this ligand. It is an important bidentate ligand, that is oxalate. So here oxalate, the original name of C2O4-2, oxalate, it does not contain any of the prefixes from the first set, di, tri, no. So bis or tris is not necessary. So we can write down here potassium, not tripotassium, only potassium, gap, then tri, oxalato, oxalato, aluminum, aluminate because the coordination entity is negative. So oxalato, aluminate, and the charge of aluminum is +3. So that is the name. You see, charge of the coordination entity is -3, and charge of each oxalate ion is -2, so the charge of aluminum is +3. Anyway, you also know that aluminum shows only +3 oxidation state. Okay, then if you come here, then it is carbonato, it is amine. So, and coordination entity is the cation. So, pentaamine, double A, double M, carbonato, cobalt, not cobaltate, hyphen 3, Roman numeral, chloride. So that is the name of that complex. And the very famous complex, K4FeCN6, potassium, hexacyanido, hyphen kappa carbon, ferrate, because the coordination entity is the anion, so ferrate, and oxidation state of iron is +2. And there is a gap between potassium and the name of the coordination entity. And AuCl4 minus, PtCl6 minus 2. All of you recall, these two complexes are formed when gold and platinum react with aqua regia respectively. Okay, so here oxidation state of gold is +3. So tetrachlorido, and here coordination entity is negative, so it becomes aurate, AURATE, and oxidation state is +3. And similarly here hexachlorido, here also the coordination entity is anion, so platinate, not platinum, platinate, and oxidation state of platinum is +4. And the last one we have already discussed about this. In this, iron carries negative oxidation state. Okay, now here tetracarbonyl sodium, the name starts with sodium cation, so sodium, then gap, tetracarbonyl, and here the charge of the coordination entity is negative, so ferrate, -2, and we should write down minus, so hyphen -2. So this is one of the rare complexes in which the central metal ion carries the negative charge. So these are the some examples for IUPAC nomenclature.